so sorry, everybody. I was not paying attention to the timer. I don't know how long we've been stuck on 0. I'm so sorry. Oh, my goodness. Oh, forgive me, folks. There's been a lot of things distracting me. It's not a good thing. Anyway, as you can see, we are live with David Tall. David, first of all, tell us where you are right now, because you're clearly not at your house. You're not with me in the studio. You're out of state somewhere. Let everybody know what's going on.
Well, first of all, hi, everybody. We're in Minnesota, actually. And in a couple hours, we're going to be joining a pastor's huddle, which means a group of pastors getting together to talk about, things that they need to prepare for. It's put together by Olive Tree Ministries. I think that's John Markel. And we're going to be talking to pastors about Israel. I got a 5-hour commitment here to talk about Israel, what's happening, geopolitics, Israel in the Bible, Israel on the ground, and we're going to be connecting all of that. So got an interesting couple of days coming on.
Oh, my goodness, bro. Well, there's a lot happening. There is a lot happening. And that's actually what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about what's going on with America and Israel. Has America turned its back on Israel? I actually think that's kind of an unfair question. We'll talk about why that's an unfair question, because there's so much in between that we have not discussed. We have to talk about what we saw in Saudi Arabia. We have to talk about some of the things that came out of the meeting in places like Qatar. We have to talk about what our thoughts are in terms of what's going on currently with Iran, the red line, all the other things that everybody's talking about. But before we do that, it's your birthday today, David. What a celebration. I will first of all, let me just simply say this. Happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
I think that our world became a better place the day that you were born.
Oh.
I am so thankful. I'm so thankful for your life. I'm thankful for what it means. Just what a complete blessing. What a complete blessing. Dean, you didn't have to pay $100 to say happy birthday. What a very sweet gesture for you, bro. God bless you.
Dean, thank you. That's cool. That is really, really cool.
Here's an interesting fact about Dean. I don't know if anybody knows this. Warrior Tradition Fund. Did you know that every dime that he collects for this ministry, because it's a ministry to veterans, every single dime goes back to vets. Not
cool.
One dime goes in anybody's pockets other than veterans. It's the truth.
That's cool. But it's
a great ministry.
But here's one of the things that I'm going to point out today to all the people that I'm talking to. Do you know that in Israel, everybody's a vet?
Oh yeah.
It's a country where, it's like,
well, unless you're part of the hard right, then you're not necessarily a vet.
Well, or ultra orthodox, or unless you're an Arab, by the way.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, if you're an Arab, you're definitely not a vet. Well, let me do this. Since I acknowledge Dean's his super chat, let me read the other ones that came in, and then we'll get into this hefty conversation, because it's going to be a hefty conversation. Brad Brunn, you say she sells by the she-sore. Notice I thought I did it right. Anyway, but Comey takes pictures of them. Yes, and he arranges them apparently. Brad, you also say conservative media, and you put conservative in quotes, asking the question, who was running the U.S. for 4 years? Like y'all, I have a theory, but I don't know if we really want to answer. I don't have a theory. I probably would stipulate it as fact, is my guess. The highlight of my Tuesday is getting...
Can we say it here and not get canceled?
You have to be really careful because of what YouTube could say, but I'm just going to say this. What the heck was going on? They had to have known that the president had cancer. That's my assumption.
No. All the doctors are saying so.
Yeah. And we all know that he hasn't had the presence of mind to do anything. If they can legally say that they're not going to prosecute him criminally while he's president because his mind is not intact, How in the world can they continue to say that he's capable of pushing the button for a nuclear weapon?
How can he have the football?
That's the point. That's the point. It literally makes no sense.
Which
Let
means,
me read the rest. Oh, go ahead.
Which means that nobody thought he had the football. Nobody gave him the football.
No. Look, there were other people running the country. We don't know who they are, but there were other people running the country. Undoubtedly, he was not running the country, not even for a second. And no one should ever trust the liars in the mainstream media that said, "Oh, I met with him. Everything was perfectly intact." Liars. You're all lying. You're not telling the truth about the president. Okay, let me read the rest of these and then we'll jump into that conversation because that also has something to do with Israel.
Okay.
Because if that's true, then that means there are powers that be that hide their ugly faces that are very much filled with hatred towards Israel.
We're seeing them coming out, though, more and more.
Yeah, but these are the scary ones. These are the ones that we're talking about, the ones that ran the president. You know, that's kind of a scary thing if you think about it. Like if you think about where that sits.
I got to talk about the Eurovision too. Now let me line it out, and I want to hear what you think about that too.
Okay. So Brad, he says the highlight of my Tuesday is getting information and inspiration from these discussions and looking at bro James's face when he reads something from me that might get him in trouble. That should be the highlight of your Tuesday, bro. I'm with you on it. If I were in your position, Brad, I'd probably feel the same way. Even though you're trying to trip me up, bro. You're trying to trip me up, yo. Okay, so I think this says Hansram, I think. Anyway, happy birthday, elder brother David. Shalom, shalom. Vindog says happy birthday to my brother David. I can't wait to see you in June in Phoenix. Ooh, going to Phoenix in June. Who convinced you to do that nonsense? You're going to be in 120 degree weather.
I'm Israeli. I did maneuvers in the
No.
desert.
No. Look, you're Israeli and I'm Egyptian. I'm telling you this right now. Going into our desert is nothing like Phoenix. I'll tell you that right now. It's a very different world. And especially if it's at the right time, you're going to feel some humidity that you don't feel in the Middle East. Diane Graham, thank you so much. And Brad says, happy birthday, brother David.
Thank
you. Apologize. I'm not as rich as Dean. Okay, so there's a lot going on right now. I mean, how do we process? Where do we start with this, bro? Because there's a lot of people going around right now saying Israel's been forsaken. The president's such a terrible guy. Look at what he's done to Israel. Blah, blah, blah. I'm hearing it so much now. So why don't we state the facts? Why don't we start with talking about what's going on?
Okay.
And then maybe we get into some analysis as to what we're actually seeing.
All right. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the visit? Because that's happened. That's happened since we talked last. We knew it was going to happen. We didn't know what was going to happen. Okay. So start off with the visit. I want to start off with the visual of the visit. There were a couple of weird things. I don't know if you were watching all of the footage coming down and watching these tribal Arabs try to pull President Trump into this tribalism. It reminded me of events of the British Empire visiting Bali back in the early days of colonialism, or the Queen of England visiting the Aborigines in Australia. I got this kind of sense of these very tribal events and visuals and elements. They're all making him drink this little cup of coffee, and he doesn't drink coffee. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. One of the weird ones was when he was, I think, in the Emirates, and he had to walk through two lines of women waving their hair. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't see that. No.
Literally, I mean, if you can find a clip, if Dale can find a clip, it's hilarious. He's walking through these women. These women have long black hair, and they're going like this and like this, and they're waving their long black hair. And I showed it to Chrissy. Chrissy says, "What's this?" And I said, "Listen, this is a tradition or a tribe or a society that makes women cover their hair because it is sexy, because it is provocative." And they're making Trump walk down the middle of these women waving their provocative hair. I mean, it was like if he had in modern terms, in Western terms, if he'd had a two lines of women dancing on a pole dancing in front of him. I mean,
did you have to bring up pole dancing? Really?
Well, that would be in Arab terms. That would be the Western, how do you say, equivalent of that. And I'm saying to myself, doesn't anybody see what's happening here? Doesn't anybody see what's going on here?
Tell me what's happening here. What's going on? What's your observation? What are you seeing happening when that's taking place?
So they are trying to buy President Trump. They're trying to buy the United States. They're trying in every way possible to throw carrots in a way that they think that will click. And they're doing this to President Trump because they think that he is being bought by this. They're spending time and money. They're making deals with American companies because that's how they do these. This was a business deal. This was a business negotiation par excellence, and it was done in the Arab style, not in the American style. And I think that is what is going on. And I just now heard the Iranians say, well, if President Trump doesn't do 1, 2, 3, then we're going to walk away from the negotiations. Now, he knows that I know that you know that everybody knows that they're not going to walk away from the negotiations, because walking away from the negotiation is the only thing that is keeping their head above the water right now is this negotiation and the fact that President Trump is going to allow them to breathe another year, 2 years, 3 years. But they're saying we're going to walk away. This is old city market, Arab marketplace kind of wheeling and dealing going on. And the Arabs are believing that President Trump bought into it. My question to you is, do you think that he did?
No way. No, there's not a snowball chance in hell that Donald Trump bought into it. And I'm not sure that the Saudis are stupid enough to think that they could buy the president.
They're not buying him only with money. They're saying to themselves, what does President Trump want? What he wants is an agreement. What he wants is to come back to the American people and say, I've brought you $1.5 trillion worth of business. And they believe that if they give him that, he will give them what they want. And one of the things that it seems that they've gotten from him is his agreement to leave Hamas in place as part of the ceasefire / hostage agreement that is on the table right now.
Okay, let me ask you the most difficult question that can be asked in the geopolitical analysis part of this. And this is the most consequential. This is the one that everybody has to be held to answer. And this is the one that brings in heated conversation sometimes, okay?
Yep.
What in the world is it that Saudi Arabia would want, or any of the other Gulf Coast states, with the exception of Qatar, that they could get from allowing Hamas to continue, especially when virtually all of them hate Islamic Brotherhood? All of them cannot stand what Hamas is doing right now to the effort that they're trying to make to build their wealth. Saudi Arabia especially, Abdul Aziz, all of them, they all recognize, every one of them recognize that the one thing stopping them from going to the next step, economically speaking, is the situation with Hamas. What makes anybody think that their end game or their goal is the elimination of any effort to destroy Hamas? Tell me where there's any reasoning in that.
Okay, here's how I think this pyramid is being built. Okay, if Israel had wiped out Hamas a year ago, everybody would have been happy, but it hasn't happened. The hostages have tied Israel's hands enough that they can't use the full force, but they are using enough force that it looks bad on CNN and on Guardian and on BBC. So they are saying if Israel had finished Hamas a year ago militarily, that would have been the best thing for everybody. But Israel has not done that. And I'm going to say this. Israel has beat Hamas, has put them down, but from a media geopolitical point of view, okay, Israel has not totally put Hamas down enough. The British are now planning on cutting ties with Israel because we're not putting aid in there. So the suffering of Hamas is costing Britain leadership, French leadership, Saudi leadership. The suffering of Hamas is costing their leadership in political potential. Think about this. The British have a Muslim majority. The French have a Muslim majority. All of these nations who have Muslim majorities, not the Hamas as a political entity. The suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza that is being portrayed in the wrong way, but the fact that it is being portrayed is costing all of these leaderships political points. That, I think, is the game that is being played right now. And as a reason,
when it comes to Saudi Arabia, for example, how does wanting to hold on to Hamas in Gaza beneficial to them?
Saudi Arabia cannot make an agreement that will be positive for Israel while the Palestinians suffer like this. I'm saying that is the image.
I want
the image of the Palestinian suffering like this. Okay, let's put it this way: the image of the Palestinian suffering like this. The Saudi Arabian people, the Arab people, are saying, "Why are we giving Israel carrots and prizes while Gazans are dying unregardedly?" And why is it that the Western people, the colleges in the West, see this as something terrible, and we're not saying this is something terrible?
Okay, let me ask you a question. Let's just face this. What does the average Saudi citizen think about Palestinians, from your perspective?
I'm going to enlarge that. What is the average Egyptian? What is the average Jordanian? What is the average Qatari? Okay, they would see something like this. The Palestinians made a mistake. They're Muslim Brotherhood, but they're still our brothers. They're still.
Oh, come
Muslims.
on! You're smarter than that, David. Come on. You know geopolitics way better than that. Than to make that. First of all, you named several Middle Eastern groups that are completely different altogether. The Qataris are going to look at something completely different than the Egyptians. Completely.
No,
and the Egyptians are going to be a whole lot more
average. Are we talking the average citizen, or are we talking the leadership?
I'm talking about the average citizen. The leadership is always going to be something different.
Do you know what Ramadan series are?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Have you seen some of the Ramadan series that came out in Egypt this year?
I have not.
Actually, terribly, terribly anti-Israel.
Yeah, no. We're not asking about anti-Israel, Habibi. That's not my question. My question is not their view on Israel. Do not conflate a nation's despising of Israel with the embracing of Hamas. Because the reality of it is they might despise Israel, but a lot of them deeply hate Islamic Brotherhood. They hate Islamic Brotherhood.
So what does the average... I'll throw it on you. What does the average Egyptian citizen living in Cairo think should happen now in Gaza?
The average, I would bet that the average person in Cairo who's looking at the situation in Gaza is basically saying, I don't care what happens, keep them away from me. The average Egyptian is not like, they do not like Islamic Brotherhood.
Do they have any soft place for Muslims being stepped on by the Jewish
Sure.
nation?
I mean, like any nation that is that way, but Egyptians are gonna look at it way differently than the Qataris are gonna look at it.
I'm talking about the average person.
Yeah, I'm talking about the average person. They're gonna look at it. They're gonna look at it differently. The average person in Egypt watched their country pretty much fall apart at the hands of Islamic Brotherhood with the help of the United States of America. Okay, they're never going to forget the Arab Spring. They're never going to forget it.
Okay, what I'm trying to go is there a line going between a Muslim living in Dearborn, Michigan, who is anti-Israel in the extreme, and a Muslim living in Damascus, and a Muslim living in Upper Iraq, or a Muslim living in Istanbul? Is there an anti-Israel basic ring that sometimes does, but sometimes doesn't, that interplays with the local politics of, we hate the Muslim Brotherhood, we're Shia, we're Sunni, and everything else? Is there an underlying hatred of Israel that kind of goes through all of this? Because what does an American living in Dearborn, Michigan care about what happens there? And they're vehemently anti-Israel. By the way, I'm in the center of Muslim area here. I haven't seen any Muslims yet. I'm kind of worried.
Yeah. Look, when you start getting into the politic of what happens here in the United States with a group of people who are of Arab descent but don't know their heads from their rears, it's very different from somebody who's actually living in the middle of it, especially if you're living in Egypt in the north as you get closer to Rafah. There's a lot of very strong views concerning the Palestinian population. They don't even view Palestinians as real Arabs.
Okay. So where is the pro-Palestinian sentiment coming from? And there is.
I think the pro-Palestinian sentiment continues to be the same picture that is drawn by much of the propagandist mechanisms that are being put out by the West. That's what a lot of that is. I don't think that the Arabs are as cut and dry as some people might think, especially the Arabs in Saudi Arabia. I don't think it's as cut and dry. I mean, even if you completely discount the view of the people are inconsequential in worlds like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It doesn't matter what the people think. It's going to matter what the royal family actually does. And I can tell you right now, the royal family wants nothing to do with the nonsense that the Palestinian Authority brings, Fatah brings, Hamas brings. It's a mess for them.
So why isn't this finishing right now? Why hasn't Hamas stood up and said, we give it? What do they believe?
You ready for my answer? And it's going to be controversial, and people might not like my answer.
Okay, wait a minute.
The only reason why Hamas is not defeated. Well, you asked me a question. I was going to answer it.
Okay, I was going to frame it a little bit more, but okay, let's go.
Oh, go ahead, frame it. Go ahead and frame it.
Okay, if Saudi Arabia doesn't want anything to do with the Palestinians, why haven't they agreed to normalization with Israel? They could have done that a year ago. What's holding them back from complete normalization with Israel?
Oh, come on. This is not hard. This is a very basic question, and this is part of your field of expertise. Look, Saudi Arabia doesn't agree to normalization with Israel because Saudi Arabia is concerned about its own security ramifications. Saudi Arabia isn't going to agree to normalize with Israel when you have an administration that is blatantly anti-Israel, which means anti-West, And if they're anti-West, then they are not going to stand with Saudi Arabia. Come on, give me a break. When Saudi Arabia is picking up the phone to talk to Biden, Biden isn't even acknowledging that they exist.
So why didn't they normalize this week?
Oh, come on. They have to build a coalition to normalize. That's why.
Why can't they do it alone?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean when you say that.
Okay, Trump was in Saudi Arabia. He wanted Saudi to normalize with Israel. He wanted to be able to wave that flag.
Saudi Arabia has to be able to build a coalition with the Gulf Coast Council. There's no way that Saudi Arabia is going to do this without getting a nod from all of the rest of the GCC. And the GCC will give them a nod completely. They'll say yes if they understand that Saudi Arabia is committed to the action. But you want the bigger answer to the bigger question?
Yep.
The bigger answer to the bigger question is they won't normalize until Hamas is gone. I'm telling you, I've said it from the very, very beginning. And do you know the only obstruction to Hamas being gone right now? The only people preventing Hamas from being gone. You're not going to like this answer.
Israel.
100% right. Israel is the only one that is keeping Hamas from being gone.
Why isn't Israel gone in and done what it looks like we're going to do this week?
Because Israel has been paying attention to the internal politic of the division that has ensued, and they have allowed the division to keep them from doing what they should have done a year ago.
Meaning, why is a division? I mean, we were usually pretty uniform during the time of war. What caused a division? I'm leading you down a road here.
Well, come on, bro. I mean, you know the answer to that. All the nonsense going on with the Concepcion, the problem with the Shin Bet, all of the stuff that it's all a big picture.
But
it all leads to
what right now is the division in Israel? What's the main division in Israel?
Well, the main division is, of course, the hostages.
Exactly.
But now, the problem is, but let me say this, David, because this is really important. The main division isn't the hostages from the perspective of the hostages themselves. The main division in Israel is related to the propagandizing of the situation with the hostages.
All right, which is why I find it very, very interesting that the divide, even about the hostages, has gone down the left-right kind of division. For instance, the more right-wing conservative, okay, the more people are saying, do what needs to be done and we will take the chance with the hostages. The more left-wing the dynamic is, they're saying, don't do anything that would jeopardize the hostages no matter what. And it's very interesting that the hostage issue is being dealt with according to political worldviews. Does that make sense?
The hostages is the only tool that the anti-Bibi crowd has left. They have nothing else left. They don't have the judicial nonsense because the average person in Israel is seeing through that garbage. Okay? They're looking at the corruption of the attorney general. They're beginning to see what I've been kicking and screaming for a long time. Thanks to people like Gadi Taub, they're becoming more aware of the deep level of corruption that was in the Shabak. They know that. They're aware of it. They looked at the memo that was written by the former head versus the memo that Bibi wrote to put everything online. And I'm sure you've seen both of those memos. You probably got to read them in Hebrew. I've only read the translations in English. But you see the dynamic that's going on right now. And the only thing that the leftists in Israel have left is the manipulation of the hostage situation.
No, come on.
Certainly, the two-state delusion isn't going to work.
They do fear the hostage situation. They do.
Say again? Who does?
The left, the people who are yelling the hostage first. I mean, it's basically two mind thoughts or two worldviews: hostage first or deal with Hamas first. Both agree that both need to be done, but the question is, what's more important, this or that?
David, I'm going to tell you this right now. That is the view that happens from the people that are looking at this from the outside. This is not what it used to be between the American right and the American left. It
Oh, no.
used to be with look, the way it used to be with the American conservative and the American liberal is they both had amicable and good and kind and loving relationships between each other. They just had a difference of opinion on the overall objective. The overall objective was always the same. We want a better country. We want this. We want that. But we have a different opinion as to how that's accomplished. That is not the case. That is not the case with the woke population in Israel versus the population in Israel that I would call the centrist or the populist group. The problem is the mainstream is getting sick and tired of the lies that are being continued and being manipulated to the point now that the Bring Them Home Now movement is no longer being viewed the same way it used to be viewed.
It's true.
Because, again, this is Bring Them Home Now, you're anti-BB. That's the view. And the problem is everybody's recognizing very quickly that BB has never changed his perspective from the very beginning. He was the same consistently throughout. He was in a position of authority when all of this nonsense happened in Gaza in 2005, and he walked away from it because of his open disagreement with Ariel Sharon. And it's the same heart and mind and philosophy that he has today. And the difference between BB and some of these other idiots that have taken on oversight in Israel is that BB is actually a real intellectual. And he really does think through the issues that he's dealing with. And the thing that the leftists don't have is they don't have clear moral direction. They're clearly immoral.
No, they're clearly emotional. I mean,
so this is become, it's beyond emotional. This is not an emotional thing, David. These are leftists.
James, these are people that I know and respect who are saying, no matter what, bring the hostages home. And I know, and these are good people, including soldiers that are in Gaza right now.
David, I understand the sentiment of no matter what, bring them home. But do not conflate the sentiment that says no matter what, bring them home with the leftist that is using the ideal of that sentiment to bring them into a place. Look, these leftists still think that the ultimate solution is the two-state delusion.
Okay.
They still think that way, David.
So I want to enlarge this, and I want to say this. I look at what you're saying. I understand and I accept. There's going to be the ones who are going to say, bring them home no matter what. We hate Israel no matter what. And there's going to be the ones who say, well, this is the situation on the ground. We have to deal with this. We are seeing more and more, both in the United States, and I'm stepping up a bit here, both the United States and in Israel, and I'm even going to say in Europe, that there is a majority that's voice isn't heard because the leftist minority, together with the ones in power, you're going to call them the deep state, I'm going to call the ones who are in power, know how to manipulate the emotion / media in a way that the majority doesn't anymore. And the thing is that people come to, and I'm going to say it's happening now, people come to positions of power on the backs of a more emotional, more woke, more left ideology, and they are leaving behind the vast majority of the people. We saw that in the elections in the United States. That the people who had moved into power were the people who said, we're on this side of the political map. We're on this side of DC. We're on this side of dealing with all kinds of questions, emotional questions, okay, about gender. We deal with it emotionally. About race, we deal with it emotionally. These people have slowly risen into the power. They're the ones who hold the keys to power. Well, the majority of the people are not there. The majority of the people still have a healthy, feet on the ground reality that they still live by. And these are the people who elected President Trump into power. Even though we thought that the left had much more power. The majority is still on the right. And I want to give you a good example for that happened this week. And I don't know what you know about the Eurovision Song Contest and what happened there. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, I have not. I'm not fully aware of what happened there.
So,
But I want you to hold that thought, because there's something that translates into Israel that everybody needs to understand. All of the useful idiots, let me just say that. I'm going to use that term. All of the useful idiots that are on our college campuses right now are the same useful idiots that have the BB derangement syndrome in Israel. And those useful idiots are the ones who are directly responsible for the hostages not being brought home. And they're also the ones that are directly responsible for Hamas not being destroyed.
For the continuation.
Because they continue to give in to the control that Yahya Sinwar still has over Israel and over the world from the grave.
Well,
he has control over them from the grave.
Well,
because the useful idiots in Israel are not paying attention.
I'm glad to say he thought he was controlling through his brother, who actually replaced him. But I don't know if you know, his brother and him are actually dividing up the Virginians right now. We took out his brother this week.
Yeah, well, thank God that Muhammad is gone. I'm serious. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be funny because basically, if you really think about it, and you look at what's going on with our friend Muhammad, and I'm being the most sarcastic that I can, he was continuing to control the usefulness of the useful idiots in Israel who continue to carry the mindset that somehow thinks that the two-state delusion is going to work.
Oh no, I don't think Israelis believe in this two-state delusion anymore. I mean, I would probably see that. I think the support of a two-state solution, by the way, don't get me wrong, I was there for a while. But I think the support of a two-state solution has gone down to, I don't know.
But David, the same people that say, I don't agree with the two-state delusion anymore, are still the same people that will say, and this is very important, they're still the same people that will go back and say, yeah, but all these people want is a better life. And we just want to give it to them, and they don't.
No, I don't think anybody in Israel believes that anymore. I don't think.
Okay, all right. How about we just address the camp that sits with all of these morons that are using the judiciary to destroy the will of the people in Israel?
All right. So I'll give you the illustration that I think I heard on an Israeli commentator a little while ago that I think is fascinating. It's all the same people. What changes is the subject issue. Meaning, in America, it was the same people that were for the woke, for the gender, equality. When before that, they were Black Lives Matter. And after that, they were all for freeing Gaza. It is the same people that keep on changing the subject.
It's the same disease.
Exactly. And the subject is not what's important. In Israel, we have the same people. And it was this two-state solution people. But now the subject is the hostages. Meaning it was the judicial, it was a two-state, now the hostages. What I'm trying to say is nobody believes in the two-state solution anymore. Nobody believes in Black Lives Matter anymore.
Now the tool is the hostages.
Exactly.
Let's not say the issue. The tool. The tool that the manipulators are using for the useful idiots are the hostages.
Okay, and I will agree to use the term. And me and you both agree that right now the best thing that could happen is Israel takes all of its military power and completely conquers Gaza, completely takes over Gaza, puts everything through a filter, finds everybody that is Hamas, loads them on a ship, and sends them away. I totally agree with that.
Look, if Mexico came in right now and took a bunch of hostages out of Southern California and then took the lives of 14,000 Americans, sorry, not 14,000. Let's do the mathematical equivalent because it's really important. 65,000 Americans throughout the course of 8 hours we would carpet bomb the literal heck out of Mexico. Mexico would be completely destroyed. It would be under a mushroom cloud.
Okay, so let me say this, and again, I don't know if our audience likes this or not, but knowing what I know today as an Israeli, you're wrong, and I'm going to say it like that. You're wrong. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. America.
I'm gonna shut that argument down in about 2 minutes, and I'll explain.
Okay, I'll let you. Okay, here's how it goes. Okay, let's say it did happen. The cartels in Mexico, not the Mexican government, the cartels in Mexico cross over the border into Tijuana, take 6,000 hostages, put them in some kind of camp in different places in the jungle in Mexico. You don't know where they are, okay? And you, as an American government, has to react to this. They fire rockets into downtown United States, and then what happens is this. You're right. In the beginning, you're going to fire rockets back. You're going to carpet bomb Tijuana. You're going to wipe Tijuana off the map. But here's the thing, that didn't release the hostages. They're still in the jungle. And the pictures from ruined Tijuana will go viral all over the world. And pressure on yes, they will.
You're delusional.
Yes,
that view is delusional. And I'll tell you why that view is delusional.
Wait a minute. Let me finish this scenario and break it up afterward.
Because I'm going to shut that argument down in about 5 seconds.
The pictures of children in Tijuana dying. The pictures of trucks trying to leave. The pictures of the suffering of what is a result of their actions will become more important than the actions that cause them. And the American government is going to hear from everybody who is of any Latino descent in America, who's going to hold up a flag and says, don't kill Mexicans. Mexicans are not your enemy.
Okay. You want to know the difference between all of that and what you're saying?
Okay.
Let me tell you the difference.
Tell me the difference.
4 million people in Sudan have been dead in the last probably 4 years, 5 years. Who's showing pictures of that? Nobody. All the people that are dead in Syria since the Arab Spring, who's showing pictures of that? Nobody. Go around and look at what happened in Azerbaijan. There are governments that won't even acknowledge what have happened to the almost 2 million Armenians that are dead. No one is talking about the open massacre that continues to happen in virtually all parts of the world, and no one says a flipping thing. You want to know why?
Because
they're not Israel.
Because they're not Mexican. I'm telling you, the difference would have been here in the United States, the Mexican element, the Latino element, the Spanish-speaking elements that see what's going on in Mexico and their heart is broken will put political pressure from the inside on the United States.
Baloney. No way in the world. My whole point behind this is Israel is different than the rest of the world. Israel is different from the rest of the world, and the way the world looks at Israel is different. If the North in Israel did that to the South in Israel, they would still be called genocidal. If Israelis were killing other Israelis, and they were doing exactly the same thing that they were doing in Gaza to Palestinians, the Israelis would still be called the people that are at fault.
Okay, so it's
a completely different world. My point behind it is this. My point behind it is the only people that are stopping Israel from doing what they need to do in Gaza is Israel. You think President Trump is going to drop a bomb on Jerusalem if Jerusalem decides to destroy Gaza?
No, but he might decide to cut off military aid.
How in the world is he going to decide to cut off military aid when he just made one of the largest military shipments to Israel? I mean, look, my point is this. My point is the less time on screen that a politician like Trump has to deal with what's going on over there, the better off he is.
I agree.
And this goes back to my Saudi Arabia argument.
And what
this goes
Trump
back
saying?
to the say again?
What is Trump saying right now? Trump is saying, I don't care. I don't care how you deal with it. Finish it off.
That's exactly what he's saying.
And I think that's the main issue right now. And I think everybody in the world is waiting for Israel to finish it off. And I kind of totally agree with you.
Yeah.
After going all the way around, me and you have found Common ground.
Because it's true. Because look, it's true. Look, the thing that everybody doesn't understand, and I'm trying to communicate to people, is Israel is different from every country in the world. There is no country that even comes close to Israel. The closest thing we have to Israel in this world is the United States of America. And even then, the United States of America does not have a promise from God like Israel does. So the thing that everybody has to understand is it doesn't matter what Israel does. There is going to be a massive objection from the rest of the world. All you have to do is read biblical history. If you know Bible history, you can see it happening again and again and again. Look at the history of the Amalekites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, all these other clowns. They all hated the actions of Israel, but Israel did what God told them to do. And when that happened, people around Israel lived with it because they had no other choice. And to say that we would never do something like that, if you really, really think that, then stop for 1 second and look at what we did with Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Oh, yeah.
Over Pearl Harbor, which was a military target. It was a military target. It wasn't a civilian target. It was a military target. We destroyed 2 cities that we know had at least 1,000 plus Americans in it. And we destroyed those cities with nuclear weapons and annihilated a whole population of people in both those cities. And you know what? We didn't give a dang.
So
we just did it.
What we are saying is Israel will not drop a bomb, but Israel has to go into Gaza with all of its military might, not considering the results for the people or the results for the hostages there are probably about 20 of them in, by the way, now.
Yeah. And I also want to say this because I just think it's really important. No matter how you cut it, you have to cut out the voice of the useful idiots.
Oh no,
you have to put them all together.
The voice is not going to be cut out. I mean, we're going to have the useful idiots now because of the world that we live in, James. We're not going to get away from them.
But David, my point is, Bibi has to cut out the voice of the useful idiots. He needs to sit down with his war cabinet, and he needs to do what he should have done a year ago. And he just needs to. He has the backing of a president that is not going to gawk at what he does. And he needs to go in there and he needs to just completely mow that down. Listen, the people that do not want to destroy Israeli lives in Gaza are already gone. They've been gone a long time ago. That's just the reality of it. And I'm not a warmonger. I'm not a war hawk. I'm not one of these guys
I think there's a lot more people who believe and accept this than you think. I think there's a lot more support for Israel than most people think.
There's way more support for Israel than most people think.
Well, let me tell my story now. And
Okay.
let me see if this kind of rings well. By the way, I've got an outline of this on the Balagan Connection. Go in and see it. But let me see if I can explain. There is a Eurovision song contest that takes place every year where every country in Europe sends a song. Israel is a superpower because we've won it more than 4 times. And again, for a tiny little nation, okay, we are considered a superpower. But as you can understand, there's political issues that go around with the song contest. There are demonstrations outside. The Spanish government tried to get the Eurovision committee not to allow Israel to go on. But the song contest is everyone sings a song, and there are judges that vote what song wins the song contest. The first round of songs goes up to a final, and then the judges vote. But during the final, they open up for the people to vote, meaning you can go in on an app, spend $1 a vote, and you can make a vote on the app. Israel's song was pretty good. It was a girl who had survived the 7th of October, who literally laid underneath bodies, faking dead, while they threw hand grenades into the little bomb shelter that she was in.
This was the one that was outside Kibbutz Be'eri?
Yes.
This little, okay, I know this story. I didn't realize that she was, I did not know that she was singing.
She was the singer.
Wow, I did
James.
not know that. I didn't know somebody was singing that was in that
Yeah,
situation.
I mean, think about this. A year and a half ago, she's under bodies, and a year and a half later, she's singing in front of an audience of hundreds of millions. I mean, that's
Wow.
Israel. We were so proud of her. A new day, and quoting verses from the Bible in Hebrew on the biggest stage. But everybody was against Israel until the votes started coming in. And here's the thing: the votes started coming in, and the official judges, the people who have risen to power in this society that we're talking about, didn't give her good votes. But when the public vote came in, the people who voted directly, Israel almost won the contest. We took second place. And in the public vote, the people that voted, we took first place by a long run.
Did the person win that? Did the person win that deserved to win, or she didn't, or they didn't deserve to win?
I don't know. He was a weird kind of Filipino. I don't know. It was a weird, I think from Austria. It was a Filipino living in Austria, singing a combination of rock and classical area kind of thing.
I mean, some of the most talented musicians in the world are Filipinos, so I'd be curious to know if they actually did good.
There we go.
Who knows?
I'm not
It's
going to
kinda
go
hard.
there, but I mean, ABBA started their career in the Eurovision Song Contest, just so you know.
Yeah,
But
wow, I didn't
anyway,
know
what
that.
I'm trying to say is the huge discrepancy between the judge vote and for instance, the judges in Spain wanted to outlaw Israel. The Spanish government voted against Israel, but the Spanish people voted for the Israeli song. And it was hilarious. Okay. The British people voted for the Israeli song, even though the British judges. So the judges did give them. What I'm trying to say is this: we're living in a society where the people who are in power and the people who have access to the, I'm going to say the legacy media, are the ones who have risen in power on their different mindset, their left-leaning mindset, their anti-Israel mindset, and I'm even going to say even something more that's kind of coming through, their anti-God mindset. And they have risen to power on that wave. But that wave is not the whole ocean. And there's still enough people in the ocean that are not anti-God, James. And we have to create for them the dynamic or the wave that brings their voice into the public sphere. And basically that's what we're doing here.
I 1000% agree with you in that vein. I do. But I think more than ever, if there's any chance that Israel is going to get out of this mess that it's in without repercussions that will damage it into the upcoming years, they have to unify. The Israelis have to unify.
They're not going to unify. The division is as deep in us as it is in America.
If they're not going to unify, at least in this matter, then I'm going to just make this statement. I think it's going to be even more exciting to see what God does. Because how in the world is God going to deliver Israel when Israel doesn't stand unified? Now, don't get me wrong. We do know from what Bible prophecy tells us that Israel will stand together in its worship of the Messiah when they realized who they rejected at some point.
Yeah, but we also
maybe that'll be the next unity that we see. I don't know.
We also know that on all the key events in the Old Testament where the people had to make a decision, there was no unification. I can talk to you about what they said when the tribes came back. I can talk to you about what they said when Moses came off the mountain. Were we unified? Definitely not. And what we've needed always is God-fearing leadership who is willing to stand up against the 10 spies and accept the opinion of the 2. Is that Bibi?
Israel was always unified. Was always unified when it went to war.
Yeah, that's
Can you think of a scenario where Israel was never unified when they went to war?
That is true.
Even even in the time when the Gadareans did not want to go to the other side of the Jordan, the commandment that Joshua gave them was, that's fine. And I believe it was the half tribe of Manasseh or the half tribe of Ephraim.
I don't remember.
If you want to stay on the other side of the Jordan, that's fine, said Joshua. But he said this, you must still go to war with us. So if after we do the conquest and we divide the land, you want to go back to the other side of the Jordan, fine, no problem. They stood unified. They fought together. Right now, you have a situation where you're seeing something that's very different from that.
So, what I'm praying and hoping right now is that Bibi does the Moses thing and goes against.
He's going to have to.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of worried, James. What happens if he doesn't?
Say it again, Habibi.
I mean, if there are elections tomorrow, there's a chance that Bennett might kind of snap something.
No way. Bennett's too weak.
Yeah, well.
There's no way. There's too many people in Israel that can see right through Bennett. Bennett ruined himself politically when he decided to go on some of these talk shows and start talking about his view on things going on in Israel. I think the one interview that destroyed him faster than any of the other interview was the one he had with Jordan Peterson. Because he went up in front of the whole world and he completely lied through his teeth. And although he may have made a good name for himself internationally, everybody in Israel pretty much lost respect for him. The people that still loved him lost respect for him. No way, Bennett.
You know who still respects him? The Iranians. We just now found a spy ring in Israel. We found a spy ring in Israel that was, accumulating intelligence for the Iranians in order to attack Bennett.
And wasn't Bennett also in some kind of a, or is beginning to engage in some kind of a thing with Ehud Olmert?
It could be, but I don't remember.
And that's a new level of crazy right there. You're going to go hang out with look, my whole point behind all of this is Israel is the one is the barrier. Let me tell you what I think about what Trump did in the Middle East. I think what Trump did in the Middle East was sent a signal. That's what I think. I think he sent a signal to Israel saying, you have a short period of time. Get this done because I'm coming with an alliance to you. It's that simple. Do you think for 1 second that it's a coincidence that with the United States of America hand in hand, Israel released a story to all of the news media and the rest of the world about Sinwar's intent for October the 7th?
Well, there's an argument whether how truthful that is and why he released it.
Look, the bottom line is the opposition to Bibi is going to challenge every single conclusion that him and his team are coming to. But we already know that the facts speak for themselves. Well, Saudi Arabia before October the 7th was getting to the point where they said, we're not going to wait for the Palestinians to come with the program.
So why are they waiting?
Well, because what happened on October the 7th clearly put Saudi Arabia in a very difficult position because Saudi Arabia knew what it had known before, and that was Joe Biden, or whoever ran Joe Biden, was not in a strong enough position to actually defend the interests of Saudi Arabia and the people around them.
Who was
they
running
were the first.
James,
say again?
Who was running Biden?
Oh, good. No. God knows. I don't know, bro.
No, come on.
I have all kinds of ideas about this. Let me run this by you because this is important and I know you're limited on time. Okay? Talk to me about what you think happened with Trump being in Saudi Arabia. Because I'm going to just say this right now. There's a lot of my Bible prophecy friends, people that I love and respect, and really wonderful people, that are saying that Trump forsook Israel, and America's turned its back on Israel, and all of that kind of thing. What is your thoughts on that?
Let me see if I can kind of illustrate this. Trump is trying to unify the Sunni majority in the Middle East. Trump is saying, if I can glue this together in a way that it hasn't been glued together. Now, again, what's the major problem with any Arab society is the internal instability inside. I mean, Arabs don't get along with each other in ways that we don't really understand. And it's down to the family level. People don't understand that Arab society, and as a result of the Muslim society, is a power structure. And what Trump is trying to do, I think, right now in Saudi Arabia is saying, I'm going to use my power and my influence to glue together a majority grouping in the Middle East. But the main thing holding me away from that, holding this glue together, is the Israel story. I need to get the Israel story. I'm willing for Israel to do what it needs to do in Hamas and in Gaza, but they need to get it done because that is holding back the final issue of tying all of these pieces together. That's what I think. And now he was waiting for Israel to finish before he put it all on the table, but he's decided that he cannot wait anymore. So he's saying, okay, here's what's on the table. I'm still gluing this. I'm still holding this together, including, by the way, the Qataris. Trump has decided to glue Qatar into this, even though they're evil and they're terrible. And he's saying, I'm going to create this dynamic. And whether Iran wants to be a part of this or not is another one. And you will have no choice but to follow in or fall into my dynamic. And I think he's doing this as much to China and to Russia as he is doing for the Middle East. And the fact that Saudi Arabia isn't willing to glue itself to Israel, glue Israel to it, okay, I think is the main issue that's bothering him. And I think he thought that the Hamas issue would have been done a long time ago. He saw what we did with the Hezbollah. He saw what we did with Iran. He saw that we're containing Yemen. And let's make this clear. Israel has won this war. Israel has won this war from a military point. He's saying, I need the Hamas issue to be finished, and then I can glue together everything. And then what is he going to get? What is he looking for? His Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, to be honest with you, there's a part of me that says that Trump has given up on the possibility of getting a Nobel Peace Prize because he's done things worthy of a Nobel Peace Prize in his first term, and he's even done some things worthy of a Nobel Peace Prize right now. Let's not even get into Pakistan, India, where he should have got it at 10 times over, and he hasn't gotten it. But the one thing that I will say is I will say that we have a bigger issue on our hands. By the way, let me read this comment from Pookie, because he's got some questions that I think are worthwhile addressing for just a second, and then we'll go from there. James, how about Trump in the Mideast? Paula White bows to the Muslim before he prays Surah 1-7, means rid Jews and Christians, and Trump says that was beautiful. Trump ignorant of the Quran. Yes. Trump does not know. Oh, I lost David. We'll see if we can get him back here. Let's see if we can get him back. I think he just disconnected for whatever reason. Okay, we'll wait till David continues. Let me just say this, because I think he will reconnect. Hopefully we'll get him back on. But let me just simply say this. Let me text David and let me know. Oh, there he is. Okay, he's connecting back. Okay, let's bring him back in. Okay. There you are, bro. Are you there? Yeah, I don't know what happened. We lost you. Let me get you back in. Let me connect you back in here. Hold on a second. Yeah, hold on. I have to. The people don't see you yet. Now they see you. Okay, there we go. Let me switch you over. People still don't see you yet. Okay, there we go.
Sorry.
Okay.
I think so. I think I lost Wi-Fi here for a minute.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Okay, so let me just simply respond to Pookie's thing, and that is, yes, President Trump is very ignorant of the Quran. He doesn't know how to speak Arabic. He doesn't know. I think he's leaning on Paula, and Paula is a terrible tragedy. Paula White should not be the spiritual advisor to the president. She's a complete mess. There's nothing about her that stands biblically. And quite frankly, if I got asked to be on the committee to advise the president, The only reason why I would ever consider taking it is because I think I could make a difference in helping him to see things for what they really are. But the reality of it is Paula White's a complete mess. Okay. Now, going back to Trump being in the Middle East, I think there's a bigger picture involved here. I think there's a much more significant picture involved. First and foremost, the one thing that everybody has to understand is that it is not being framed the way that everybody wants it to be framed. Let me ask you this question, David, before I make my point. Do you see a big rift between Bibi and Trump right now?
No.
Thank you. Okay.
No.
But the media wants the world to think that they are against each other.
Well, we know who wants the world to think that they are against each other, and we know who's kind of spinning it this way. And again, that conversation that I had with Huckabee way back then, he says, look at who's spinning what in what direction.
Yep.
Who's got an interest? I mean, and that's how you decipher or you affirm who is speaking the truth. What are you hearing the truth and what do you hear? I think Trump and Bibi are on the same page in many different ways. And I think they understand each other. I think Trump is upset that Bibi hasn't finished it off.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly. But I also think that does not prevent Trump from liking Bibi or supporting Bibi or working with Bibi. Trump is one of the most thick-skinned people alive right now, number one. Okay, do you think that Trump, these are all questions I wanted to ask you, and I wanted to wait until we were together. Do you think that Trump is a traitor for accepting this plane on behalf of the United States from Qatar to the Department of Defense?
The United States of America has accepted presents that were given to presidents down through the ages. Have you ever heard of the ceremonial sword that the Marines carry? I don't know if you know, but if you're a Marine officer, you actually carry a sword, a ceremonial sword. Do you know what the name of the sword is?
I don't know the name of the sword. I know the purpose of it. I don't know the name.
Well, what's the purpose of the sword? That's interesting.
My understanding is that the purpose of the sword traditionally, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was told to me by a supposed Marine officer, actually part of a MARSOC unit. I think I got the unit name correctly, that it's actually used for presentation purposes.
Okay.
So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So here's the name of the sword. It's called a Mamluk sword.
Oh, I have heard that name before. That's interesting.
And the reason it's called a Mamluk sword is that the United States of America, together with the Mamluks who were ruling Egypt at the time, had to conquer Tunisia in order to overcome the Tunisian barbarian pirates that were taking American hostages and holding them for ransom. And the Mamluk emir, I don't remember who he was, presented that sword to the United States of America and became part of the Marine tradition.
Yeah, I heard something like that. I didn't hear the Mamluk part, but yeah, I did hear that.
It's called, I mean,
that's
check it out.
The presentation sword.
So here's the thing. It's used in Marine ceremonies. It's, in front of the president. What I'm trying to say is that countries have been giving things to the United States of America down through the ages. I think the Smithsonian is has a whole wing of the museum that has presents. Now, should he use this present as Air Force One? I'm not sure. I'm not sure we can trust the Kuwaitis. But is the American president allowed to accept presents in the name of the United States of America? Definitely yes, and definitely has happened in the past.
Okay, let me ask the man that I consider to be one of the most brilliant military guys as far as Middle Eastern geopolitics that I know. Let me ask you some questions that I know you're going to give me the right answers to.
I wouldn't trust the plane, by the way.
What is the largest military base that the United States has in the Middle East right now?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's in Qatar.
Where is it? It's in Qatar.
Yeah.
Okay.
He spoke there, by the way.
Yes, of course. Now, do you know how the United States of America obtained that base?
Ooh, no, I don't remember.
It was given as a gift by the Qataris to the United States of America. And as a matter of fact, when there was some weaning as into whether or not we would accept that gift, the Qataris actually added another $1 billion in bolstering the Air Force base by making a longer runway for other assets to be flown in. The air base that the United States of America owns in Qatar, which is considered to be a possession of the United States and sovereign territory. In other words, that section of Qatar is considered to be American land, was given to the United States of America by the Qataris.
Okay.
It is the most strategic and important military base that we have in the Middle East, and it was given to the United States of America by Qatar.
And is being used by the United States of America to project its power in the Persian Gulf area.
It's owned by the United States of America and has been used on multiple occasions to defend the interests of Israel.
I heard in many cases it being, compared to Guam. I don't know if you know, but Guam is American territory.
That's right.
But I will say this, and again, this is acceptable and I understand this, but I will say there still is an element. For instance,
it's like Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah, but here's an instance. When America wanted to bring the B-2s in order to put pressure on Iran, okay, B-2s are America's long-range strategic bombers. It didn't bring them into Qatar. It put them in Diego Garcia.
But do you want to know why they didn't bring them into Qatar?
To keep them out of range of the Iranians.
That's right. That's the only reason why. Because if you look at the agreement that was drafted between Qatar and the United States of America, when Qatar gave the base to the United States of America, they specifically state, we have no problem if you choose to put your B-2s in our base.
Yeah. No. That was not the issue. But the issue is, it still is a little bit of a problematic situation. So,
okay,
again,
so let me ask you this question. I don't know if you know this or not. The plane that was given to the United States of America, which it's obvious it wasn't given to Trump as a gift, personally.
Yeah.
It was given to the United States of America. It's going to be turned over to the Department of Defense. Here's a question for you. When was that deal struck?
Oh, I don't know. But if I remember correctly, the interesting thing about this is it's a Boeing 747 version.
The discussion of the plane that was being given to the Department of Defense started a year and a half ago under the Biden administration, the Biden regime. That plane was already in the works to be given to the United States of America a year and a half ago. Let me throw something else out. For all the people that say, oh, the plane is in Qatar and it's a foreign blah, 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 and I thought the president said that we weren't going to accept things that were made in foreign lands or whatever. That plane was actually built in the United States of America. It was delivered by an American company who built it in the United States of America to Qatar. And for all the people that say you shouldn't use that plane, you shouldn't use that plane, you shouldn't use that plane, how about the fact that even when that plane comes out of the Boeing factory and goes to the Department of Defense, they take those planes completely apart and look for anything that would endanger their operations? What's the difference?
It is, again, we're talking about the media war, James. We're talking about, it doesn't matter what's true. It matters what is. I mean, if they had given them a camel, they would have had the same. And by the way, they could have given him the camel.
Yep. I mean, look. I listen. I think you're 100% correct on this. I actually think that the president of the United States is doing Israel a massive favor. Is helping Israel. Let me ask you this question, because this is something that you probably. I'm certain you would probably know this one. You might not. I don't know. No, I think you would. I don't think. I'm almost certain that you would know this.
Now I'm worried. Now I'm worried.
Well, you know what? I'm almost certain that you would know this. That you would know the answer to this. Let me go back and find the item here, because I'm going to ask you about it because it is important. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. All right. I can't find it, but let me ask you a different question. Okay. Do you know the phrase qualitative military edge?
Yes.
QME.
Well, I know the phrase. Okay, Israel has always talked about keeping our qualitative military edge over different factions. That's why we're always afraid when they sell F-35s to Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Did you know that we have a law in the books? And I was looking to find what the actual I was actually looking to find it. I think I actually have it here. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to try to find the actual law because I'm certain that I have it. Okay. We actually have a law in the books, and
about the United States maintaining it.
It is in U.S. law. It's called the Israel Strategic Partnership Act and the Guaranteeing of Israel's QME Act of 2020.
Yep.
The first law was passed in 2012, then 2020 under the direction of Donald Trump. Here's how it works. There's a mandatory QME certification for every Middle East arms sale. This is read right out of their law. Before the executive branch can finalize a sale to any regional customer, it must notify Congress that the transfer will not adversely affect Israel's QME. Legislators can block or modify a deal if that finding is unconvincing.
Yep.
So, I think, personally, that the President of the United States is a brilliant man because he just upgraded Israel's laser system. He just upgraded Israel's F-35s. He just upgraded Israel's drones to 6th generation drones. And he gave Israel technology that he would have never been able to give them off the cuff, out of the blue, had he not made these arms deals in Saudi Arabia. No one's thinking about that.
There's more going on. Okay. And I think we're heading into a new stage. And what basically I think Trump is saying, I need to put this behind me because I need to deal with other stuff. And either you do it your way or I do it my way.
I think that he just equipped Israel to deal with Iran once and for all, is what I think is going on. And I think that Saudi Arabia will never object to that because Saudi Arabia's greatest concern, besides the things that are happening along the Red Sea, is Iran. Yeah. They're more concerned about Iran than anybody else because their big problem in Yemen is coming from Iran. And whether or not anybody wants to admit it, the whole reason why Saudi Arabia didn't normalize the first time was because they did not feel or believe they were secure enough when the change happened with President Trump. They were shocked that President Trump lost the race.
So here's
we'll call it losing the race. We all know what really happened.
Here's what the question that I'm going to be asking, and I think the Saudis are going to be asking, and definitely the Israelis are asking. Is this new regime the new sheriff in town? I mean, are we going to find ourselves with another Trump losing the election or a Trump version losing the election, and we're going back to Bidenism, for lack of a better word?
I think it will be impossible if Trump does what I think he's trying to do. And I think that what Trump is trying to do is Trump is trying to solidify the plan that he had put in place so that this never happens again. He is making right now everything 2020 proof. That's what I think is happening. And I think that the Saudis are loving him for it. I think the Qataris have mixed feelings about it. I think that they can be convinced to walk away from some of their terrorist state sponsoring tendencies because they're doing the same exact thing. They're westernizing only for the sole purpose of gaining more income.
They just saying to themselves, we need to wait another 3 years until a new administration comes in.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's hunker down.
They're not saying that, David, but what they
Gaza
are
is saying
saying
that. The Hamas is saying that. The Iranians are saying that. The Houthis are saying that.
But Saudi Arabia isn't saying that.
Excuse me.
And that's why Saudi Arabia needs to see the elimination of Gaza and needs to see pretty much the truncation of Iran.
No, the whole world needs to see the elimination of Gaza for.
But I'm talking about this normalization agreement.
Yeah.
That when they are normalized, you will know for a fact that Saudi Arabia is satisfied with the condition by which they know they can maintain their security. In the mind of bin Salman, the only barrier that he has is the security concerns that could destroy the progress he's made concerning the West.
What's going to happen the day after they sign the agreement?
The day after they sign the agreement, effectively, the Persian Gulf becomes useless for trade.
Yeah, well,
right down to the right. Unless the only part of the Persian Gulf that actually becomes very useful is that portion in southern Iraq where they're building that new canal. Because what they'll end up doing is they'll offshoot through Kuwait what they need to cut across and create more shipping motions, especially for India and Pakistan.
I'm going to put something down here, and I'm not sure I'm right, but I kind of feel it because I'm hearing it from different sources. The day after the agreement, El-Julani is going to make an agreement with Israel and Syria.
100%. I wouldn't be surprised. If Al-Julani made that agreement before Saudi Arabia made that agreement.
No,
you want to know why? Because if the United States of America can convince Saudi Arabia that they have enough influence to stabilize areas like Syria and, of course, what eventually becomes Turkey's territory, then you have a situation by which you can actually become more confident about the security issues. Because here's the one thing that people forget, and they forget this a lot because if they don't know geography, they're not gonna recognize it, right? But who are the borders to the north of Saudi Arabia? The borders to the north of Saudi Arabia is Jordan and Iraq, and of course Kuwait. So if you think about this, when you look at the nation that's to the north of that, if you can bring stability to that region, you all of a sudden cut Iran off at the knees from taking their arms and transporting them, because Iraq will also become more centralized because of what's happening with the Kurds to the north, and Syria will actually begin to change its tune. And by the way, I mean, I think I should probably note something, and it's kind of important to note this. There are 4 names in Ezekiel 38. 4 names that are given to Turkey. So if the Bible is giving 4 names in Ezekiel 38 to Turkey, I'm guessing Turkey expands a little bit. And by the way, that's something.
Yeah,
and that's something.
Thought about that one.
And that's something that we should all be thinking about. I'll show you. I'll actually show you I'll show everybody the graphic that I have that helps everybody understand this. Let me see if I can find it here and put it up for everybody. Yeah, and it might not be the most. Let me see if I can do this. Hold on. Let me see if I can bring this up here. Yeah, so you can see it right here. Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarma. That's Turkey. So if I'm expanding Turkey out, then I'm definitely going to probably go into Syria. Okay? Iraq becomes inconsequential with respect to its military mechanism, but very consequential when it comes to its business acumen, which then explains Babylon to us. The Persian Gulf gets cut off at the knees.
Well, again, every time I see these, every time we go into this, what yells to me more than anything is that Saudi Arabia isn't there and Yemen isn't there. And there are...
Well, no, let me explain something about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is very much there. In Ezekiel 38, Saudi Arabia is mentioned. It's actually Sheba and Dedan. And the thing about this is why I think this is great what the president's doing with Saudi Arabia. Sheba and Dedan are the countries, we're talking about Saudi Arabia on the Gulf Coast, they're the countries that say, we object to the attack of Israel. when the attack of Ezekiel 38
Yeah.
happens.
Again, is Sheba Ethiopia or Yemen?
No, we're talking Sheba and Dedan. We're pretty much talking about all of Saudi Arabia. So it would include the southern portion of the Arabian Peninsula.
Because
I think.
the Ethiopians think that Sheba is Ethiopia.
No, so the argument there with that is Cush. A lot of people think that the biblical reference of Cush is very likely what we're talking about when we talk about that area.
Okay.
So, but it's kind of interesting because when you talk about the role of what Ezekiel says is Cush in essence, I think Cush is more Sudan than it is Ethiopia. That's just my my statement. There's a lot of reasons for that. But then if you take the area of Eritrea, you take the area of Djibouti, you even take the area of Somalia and you combine it with Ethiopia, then you can probably see the area that the Bible is referring to as such. So it is very interesting when you think about that. And I do think that, like, when you talk about like the Gulf Coast states, like, when you think about Qatar and Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates and Oman and Yemen and Kuwait, those are probably all going to be bunched into the people that object to the attack against Israel. So the westernization of these Gulf Coast states make a lot of sense. You look at if you look at the Gulf Cooperation Council states, every single one of those states walk according to the cue of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you heard some of the resolutions that came out of the Arab League agreements meeting in, I don't remember where.
I was going to read those today. I haven't read them yet.
Some of them. Sisi said some terrible things. I mean, everybody is throwing Israel under the bus, at least publicly, on all of this.
I genuinely think they're holding the line until Gaza is done.
Let's get it done.
I think they're holding the line until Gaza is done. One other thing that came out of this, by the way, I'm doing a video on it. I'm releasing the video, I think on Monday I'm releasing it. But I started scouring some of those resolutions and memorandums of cooperation and memorandums of agreement. Do you know one of the memorandums of cooperation and memorandums of agreement that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is not publishing, but the United States Energy Department is publishing because by law they're required to?
Building a nuclear reactor?
Building nuclear reactors. Building nuclear reactors in Saudi Arabia.
No, we're talking about it here. Excuse me. Israel's media is talking about it.
Yep. It's amazing that that's not been discussed by anybody.
The only official legal nuclear reactor in the Middle East is going to be built by the United States and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Because all the rest of the nuclear reactors, nobody knows about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
That's
right. And I think Saudi Arabia is the most strategic place to do it if you're going to do it. Because Saudi Arabia wants to make their center. I think the only reason why they're talking about building those is because of the massive AI contracts that they just signed.
James, I'm going to have to go in a minute, but I want to bring it all down to a personal level.
Yeah.
Me and you both agree that the best thing that could happen right now is Israel goes in and finishes off the Hamas problem on its own in Gaza.
1,000%.
But I agree and I understand. But one Israeli soldier was killed today in Gaza. Okay, and it's not like it's a cakewalk. It's going to be hard, fierce fighting, and that hard, fierce fighting, and maybe one of the things I want people to really realize, because in a combat zone, you are looking out for the lives of your men and the objective that has to be taken. Meaning, okay, the lives of my men are more important than theoretically the lives of the people that are on the ground. If somebody sticks a weapon out of a window and shoots at me or my men, I will use my military power to neutralize that threat. And if I use more firepower than was used against me, that is considered an asset, a positive in modern warfare. Meaning, if somebody sticks an AK-47 barrel out of a window and shoots at me, I am allowed to shoot back with a tank. I don't have to shoot an AK-47. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And people mix up rules of warfare with nicely moral equivalency.
Yep.
And I'm going to say even more. If there is a window that I think is a threat, even if somebody hasn't put a barrel out, I will put a tank round in that window. It's called suppressive fire. Everybody in the world has always done it down through the ages.
Yep.
I don't check who's in that building.
Yep.
That is warfare. The thing is that the enemy is using that against us. One, which is why I'm saying this. I agree. I believe that the best thing for now is for Israel to go in and finish off Hamas, be the price to us and the price to them, what it may be. Let's keep the prices down. But I'm saying that after I have a personal connection to that. I'm not saying this out in the air. This is not how do you say a Discovery Channel this. I'm saying this knowing that my nephew Sean is going to be on a tank in Gaza.
Yeah.
And my nephew Amiel, who's just now finished his basic training as a paratrooper, will probably be in the house-to-house fighting in Gaza. I'm saying this knowing that we will have to be able to pay the price, God forbid, no matter what. And that includes the hostages too. And I think people need to understand that that's the way we need to think as Israelis today.
Yeah, one of my big prayers is that Israel will start being unified over this and think about it for what it is. I think that the president of the United States can only do so much. I think that it's not a coincidence that Mike Huckabee is there, because Mike Huckabee is going to be a valuable asset and being utilized by the president to correctly and effectively signal Bibi to do what Bibi needs to do without it becoming a he needs to create an element of plausible deniability. But I'm going to say this because I think it's really, really important. I'm going to beg the people who are trying to analyze this through biblically relevant or prophetic eyes to not be so quick. Not be so quick to jump on the side that says Israel is being forsaken by America. I don't think that's happening.
I think one of the reasons, and now I'm seeing, the more I'm seeing it, one of the reasons that Mike Huckabee is the ambassador of the United States in Israel is because I can't think of anybody better who could say to me, and could say, I know what's going on. I know it might seem to you like the president of the United States has given up on Israel, but I know personally that's not happening. Yeah. Mike Huckabee is doing that for all of Israel. By the way, he's doing an amazing job on Israeli media, actually purveying the same thing.
Yeah.
He's saying,
and I believe go
ahead. I know him. He says, you're listening to people quoting sources that are unnamed. I am a named quote source. You can use my name. No, President Trump has not turned his back on Israel.
Yeah, and I think that Mike Huckabee was placed by God in the position that he's in. I couldn't have thought of a better ambassador to Israel representing the United States. We were all thanking God when we got that word. I was blessed because I have a direct connection to Huckabee through you, because you are very close to Mike. And so I'm very grateful that we're getting that update and we're getting the information. And I think perhaps more importantly and more significantly, I believe that it's going to be revealed that the president of the United States stuck his neck out for Israel in the midst of all of this maneuvering. I really believe that's that it will be understood that way when real history speaks about what happened. And by the way, I think that's Justin that's telling me this about writing a book. A book is coming out in November. November is when it's going to be done on the book of Revelation. It'll actually be one of two books that I write on the book of Revelation, and it will be out in November, and we'll tell you all about it when it's coming, and I'm actually very excited about it. It's a project that has been in the works now for a better part of 2 years.
Tell,
So
tell Justin I said I need to talk to him about a book too.
yeah, okay, Justin, talk to your father-in-law. Talk to your father-in-law about a book. I don't know. That's got to be an inside thing. I don't know. I feel like I'm on the outside of that one. I don't know.
We're using you. We're using you to convey messages.
I think so. I think so.
Oh.
But you got to write a book too, David. You got to write a book. We'll have to talk about that. You have to write a book. I think you could write a really, really, really good book on the eyes of Israel through the military mind.
Well, I'm trying to decide if I want to write a fiction or a documentary.
No. Write a real, write a nonfiction. Start with a nonfiction. I could be wrong, but I think you could do a really, really good job.
I'm dying to write a science fiction military
Justin
book
says we should entitle the book "The Book of Balagan." That's hilarious. That's funny.
Can you see people quoting? Okay, let's read from the Book of Balagan, chapter 1, verse 32.
Yeah, it's so true. I just love that. I think that might be a really cool title.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're very excited about the Revelation project. I think we're going to start with that. It'll be a couple of books, and then there's another one in the works, but that's a year and a half away, and I'll explain to everybody what that is later. But it's not even close.
James, I'm about to talk to a whole group of pastors about how they should be supporting Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really, really glad that somebody did put a group of pastors together to listen and ask themselves what we need to know about what's going on in Israel and what we should be doing to support Israel. And I want to convey, through this platform as much as anything else, this needs to be done more. More pastors need to learn about Israel and to understand what to do for Israel from a biblical point of view. It should be something that pastors spend time and effort on. It should be something that churches spend time and effort on it. And again, I'm doing this up here in Minnesota, but again, let's find more and more pastors. Maybe we could put a conference together.
That's what I was saying. I was saying we should probably do something like that ourselves. It would be a really good idea.
Let's do it.
Well, we should do it sooner than later too. We'll talk about it when you get back. We'll put one together.
Okay.
We'll give people an education on Israel.
Yalla.
Okay, Habibi. Well, let's pray and ask the Lord to go before us. I kept you longer than I told you I would, which makes me feel like a liar.
And don't forget, it is my birthday today. So
it is your birthday, and we're going to pray that God bless you on this very special day. Okay. Justin, I didn't even pay attention to that link. I'm sorry, brother. I'll take a look at it. I didn't even realize you texted me. Okay. All right. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we just thank you, Lord, for your goodness and your faithfulness to us, Lord. We thank you for the fact that you continue to show up on our behalf, Lord, because you're faithful and you're good. And Lord, we just pray, God, to give us a heart more for Israel every day, Lord. We pray that you would help us to be mindful of all of these things, Lord. We pray for David on his very special day. Lord, this truly was a day that our world became better, Lord, the day that he was born. And we thank you, Lord, for that. And we pray, God, that you would preserve my dear brother, that you would give him many years of life until you come for us, Lord, that you would just bless all that he does. Bless him spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, Lord. Have your hand upon him, Lord. Build him up. Use him in a profound and mighty way. So, Lord, we love you and thank you. We look to you, Lord, and we just ask these things now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Yalla.
We love you guys. Keep fighting the good fight. Make sure you keep your eyes on the prize. Look to the Lord. Remember, Christ could come at any moment. Love you guys.